Hello and welcome to the Last Word on Spurs. We are your award-winning Tottenham Hotspur Podcast. Sorry for the downbeat mood to begin with. Just the reality of Tottenham that can't always give you nice things all of the time. Have to take a little bit away from you when things are going in a good way. Thank you so much for joining us. If you're listening to us for the first time, we're on iTunes, we're on Spotify, we're across all major audio platforms. We're of course on X, we're on Instagram, we're on Facebook too. I'm joined by Look Free, regular returning guest to Last Word on Spurs. One of the regulars that will not allow me to call him a jinx because it isn't always his fault. But Vass Koni's back from Dr Tottenham. You sometimes know what that means. Joining me, as always, I've got Jason McGovern and Crackers here. Can I just say, given the nature of the way that game finished, I'm pleased to say I've got three very, very wise men to try and look back on what was going to be up until the last bearings of that game. A really professional win over Everton. But Tottenham at the very, very death, unfortunately, throwing away the 3 points through, you could say, an argument of substitutions, game management. We'll get into all of that and more. Boys, we'll go straight into it. Vass, actually, I'll come to you first. 2-2 at full time against Everton. Spurs, probably, I'd say, slightly the better side overall, especially in the second half, you'd say. But then when you feel and you look at the back at the game, I do feel maybe a draw maybe is a fair result on the balance of play. How do you see it for you, Vass, that 2-2 draw up at Goodison Park?
Yeah, I thought we struggled for control of that game. We had some in the second half, which was good. It calmed things down. Everton went full on Burnley, didn't they? Especially in the first half. They were just long balls in behind the wing backs, crosses, corners, set pieces. And we struggled to cope, and we struggled to actually get the ball under control and move it through midfield. When we did, we scored a couple of goals, 2 goals that were probably worthy of winning any game, in fairness. But we conceded 2 sloppy goals from set pieces, very sloppy, I have to say. And it's cost us a point at the very end. And I mean, we were saying just off air just now, Jace was saying you should never underestimate an away point, and he's absolutely right about that. But it's just the manner that we just let the game drift away in that manner, and I think we sort of just struggled to make our passes and move the ball through midfield, like I said, and towards the end there, I mean, just before that equaliser, which was really disappointing. I mean, both Richarlison and Kulusevski had an opportunity to retain possession and move us up the pitch a little bit, and both ran into Everton players, and Kulusevski gave a free kick away, and it's the kind of thing you just don't need in those last moments, giving them more set pieces. So in the end, disappointing, regardless of the performance, unfortunately, Rick.
Yeah, I mean, Jace, bringing you in, look, it's a really frustrating 2 points dropped and a missed opportunity to put that pressure on the likes of Arsenal and Man City. Now, look, again, trying to bring some fair balance here. Ange has done this a few times where substitutions have been really, really good under him. Sometimes they have been a bit poor and questionable. Yeah, again, today we see Spurs replacing, virtually the whole midfield late in the game. And ultimately, you could say we lost control of that game towards the end. I don't think you can make that many changes late because it is so disruptive to the team. I mean, give me your thoughts overall on the result, the performance, and also Ange's subs there, Jace, for you. We have to unmute Jace first.
I thought the result was probably the fair result. We were probably slightly the better side second half. They were the better side first half. 2-1 at half time flattered us, didn't it? Let's be honest. They looked more likely to score than we did. So, you shouldn't ever undervalue an away point, but it always feels frustrating when it comes to late. And we had that with Wolves earlier in the season. But over 38 games, you'll score some 90th minute winners like we did at home to Sheffield United and at home to Liverpool, and you'll concede some 90th minute equalisers. That's just the way. It's not Spursy. It's what 19 other teams in the division do at times. Is concede late goals and score late goals. So, but just frustrating. I think, with the substitutions, if I go back to Wednesday night with Brentford, we had control of the game, and perhaps the criticism was we didn't keep control of the game against Brentford, and we kept going forward. And I think he probably thought of that, and we kind of went the other way today. We're bringing Skips on, and Sarr came on, and we took Werner off, and we took Maddison off, and so I think he's tried to see the game out, But then you've seen what the problem is sometimes if you deliberately try and see a game out, that you can invite that little bit of extra pressure. And we're right, you cannot, against an Everton side that was a threat from set pieces, and only really set pieces all game, is concede a sloppy, silly foul so late in the game. And it was Wolves all over again. And thank God that we didn't concede another one on top of it. I think, I think the Man City game has given us a little bit of a problem with Vicario, in that teams are now spotting that get in front of him, and he's perhaps not. He's like most goalkeepers that come from overseas, new to the league. They're used to getting fouls in those situations, and perhaps he looks to be fouled rather than really dominate the ball. And other teams will have looked at City. Everton will have looked at the City goal. Other teams now will look at the Everton set pieces today, the problems we've been under. You can sure David Moyes is getting Souček and people like that to get ready for exactly those scenarios. So we've got to learn from that. Maybe Vicario doesn't want someone in front of him because he feels he can get to the ball easier if there's less bodies there. But then he's got to go and get the ball, not look for the foul and just go down sometimes. So there's lots of things to learn from it. At the other end, Richarlison, two fantastic finishes. Great to see him. It's 10 Premier League goals for him now, and we're in the first week of February. So that's the player we thought we bought. So there's good things to come from the game. There's disappointing things, but it is what it is. Liverpool play Arsenal tomorrow. Man United play West Ham tomorrow. So there'll be plenty of teams dropping points around us tomorrow as well. And maybe the point come Sunday night, the point might not seem such a bad result after all.
That's the thing, Jason, isn't it? Sometimes you look at the frustration of the missed opportunities where we see it every weekend. There's an opportunity to build amongst teams that have dropped points. And unfortunately, when you do go first on the weekend, that is the frustration you've got now to wait and see how the other teams play out, right?
Yeah, of course that happens. But like I say, we've won games in the 90th minute. We've conceded in the 90th minute. All the teams will do that. Man City lost to Arsenal, didn't they, in the 90th minute or something? So,
Yep.
It can happen to all teams. It was late last week. It was late today. It was late against Wolves. But, you just have to learn from your mistakes. The frustrating thing is it was a stupid free kick to give away. We didn't need to give the free kick away. And when you invite the pressure, and if the team puts the ball in the box late on, surely chances come.
Yeah, I mean, look, points being made here from the viewing audience here. Cracks bringing you in. You look, conceding 2 goals to United, Brentford, and Everton. You can't score 3 to 4 every week and expect to win. And again, a lot of the murmurs of the fact that I think for Tottenham now, that goal against Everton late on does mean now Spurs have conceded 8 goals in injury time, the most in the Premier League. It is a worrying stat and one you can't get away from. And again, when you look at Spurs' defensive record, which I mentioned in the green room to you guys, Spurs now, they've conceded 27 goals in their last 14 games, with only Sheffield United and Forest conceding more in that time. Now, Cracks, I think you might have been there or around it at the time, but in the reverse fixture, Spurs were literally seconds away from conceding a stoppage-time equaliser against Everton. I was there, and to be fair, I mean, on that day, you might have said they're really unlucky to not have come away with a point. But, we have to make that point, as Jason mentioned, against Brentford and Burnley, it nearly happened too. It does feel, Cracks, goals against us are fairly going to be an obvious thing under Ange, and that's not a disrespectful way. I just think the way Tottenham play, they are an open, expansive team, which does give the opportunity to teams to play on the counter. But the frustrating thing about today is it's an Everton side that relies so much, as Jason Vass said there, on set pieces. And, since that Man City game, there is a concern with Vicario, which we'll come on to. But just to add on the point, it's so frustrating for the second consecutive season. We dropped 2 points at Goodison, which, Jason, we always say, laughing and jokingly, it's quite a happy hunting ground for Tottenham. And it's now 5 seasons without a win there, Cracks. How do you overanalyze that late draw up at Everton, which takes away 2 vital points for us?
Yeah, it's game management, isn't it, Rick? It seems to be the next step that we've got to get to grips with, and giving away, as I say, silly free kicks, giving away these late goals. It's almost like the Ange DNA of all our attack is just runs through completely, we just can't get out of that mode even for the last few minutes. So we've got to try and find that balance now as a team of going with this Ange philosophy of attacking football. We're all enjoying that generally, but this is something that I alluded to back at the start of the season with Ange, that maybe there needs to be a little bit of balance of Ange ball versus just a little bit more protectionism towards the end of games. I mean, bringing on Skip and Hill against a team that's just going to be unloading bombs on you at the end of the game just seemed a bit mad, to be honest. You know, it just sending a couple of ballet dancers really into like a street dance, wasn't it? It was I don't know. There's generally things are great, but there's just a few little things at the moment. We haven't been utterly convincing in any game, even though we have been getting away and winning a few. This Bentancur and Maddison just doesn't seem to be working. There just doesn't seem to be the right sort of chemistry between them. We've seen that twice. They just seem to be running off of each other a little bit like Son and Richarlison was at one stage. So that needs a little bit of sorting out for me. I don't know. We are progressed, but there's a few little bits and pieces that we have just got to sort out. And as you say, the Vicario one, I'd see in the comments a little while ago somebody saying that maybe our defenders just need to maybe defend him and protect him a little bit more. And during the game, me and my lad Tom were watching it, and I said, why is Romero not just going and getting in a few of their defenders' faces as they're standing on Vicario? Just go and give them, I don't know, just go and growl at them or something. You know, he's a big lump. Just start getting in their ear a little bit. But yeah, we've got to learn to be just a little bit more fighter and not boxer. I think just get a little bit more balance. Hopefully it will come. But yeah, this conceding goals, you know, there's a lot being conceded. So things do need to be looked at. So yeah, disappointing, Rick, from where we was. We should have been easily seeing that game out. I don't think Ange has got them subs right at all today, at all.
Mm-hmm. I mean,
like I say, Cracks, I just think maybe Vicario, when they've discussed defending set pieces, that it's his preference that no one's there protecting him, so that he can get to the ball. And you'd probably have to run back the entire season. How many times has he got to a ball because there's less bodies in the box? You always notice it when you concede to it. He may well have taken 20, 30 corners in the course of the season where he's been able to get to the ball, whereas if you start putting bodies in front of him, there's no chance to get to the ball. So, you know, it feels bad because it's happened twice in a week type of thing. But like I say, you'd have to analyse the whole. It's a bit like the playing out from the back. Everyone jumps out when you play out from the back when you concede a goal. But if you've created 12 chances up the other end before that goal over the course of a few games, then you play out from the back. But it's always so noticeable when you suddenly concede one and everyone throws their hands up. Why are we playing out from the back? And you forget all the chances and goals you've scored by doing exactly that thing. So it might just be that, like I say, I get the preference that Vicario wants that to be the setup at corners. But he's got to, like I say, he's got to learn, if you want that, don't play for a foul. Because I didn't think last week's was a foul against him, and I didn't think today's was a foul, but he's kind of looking for a foul to get himself out of trouble. But it's just an adjustment that he needs to make, that's all. It's no big criticism of him at all.
Yeah, I mean, it's funny, isn't it? We come to what now, the midpoint of the season, the space of a couple of games now, and this is where we're finding this out. You know, again, he's been absolutely fine for the last 15, 16 games. I mean, we'll come on to that in a very short space of time. But I just want to ask you got a concern over the fact Spurs maybe to some degree, and it's not all games, because again, we know obviously at the moment they're holding this horrendous record of it being 8 goals conceded in stoppage time. Is there an issue in terms of killing games off, Vass, or what do you put that down to in terms of the nature of the way Spurs are conceding late goals? Is it game management? Is it just unfortunately the rub of the green? Or would you say it's come down to mostly?
Late goals aren't a problem as long as they don't cost you points, right? So if you've scored enough up the other end already, letting in a late goal isn't going to matter. And I think we've lost some of our fluidity going forward that we saw earlier in this season. Obviously, Maddison and Bentancur are both working their way back to full fitness. Kulusevski's form seems to have dropped off a cliff recently. Even Udogie, who started the season so brightly, is doing well. He set up one today, which was a great bit of play. But there are times when we're just running into the opposing team and we're not finding the way through. I mean, the last few games, my lads call them sweaty because it's sort of performances where you're just sitting on the edge of your seat hoping for something to happen when we're not making anything happen because we just keep turning over possession, keep giving the ball back to the opposition. And the more you do that, the more you invite problems for yourselves. And when you're playing against an Everton team who like to threaten you with set pieces, then giving away free kicks is something that you shouldn't really be doing. And that's come to cost us. So, yeah, late goals are an issue. But if we find our fluidity and our play and can be more expansive and create opportunities up the other end, I mean, obviously, I think we're missing Son as well. That has to be said. But there's just something about the fluidity in our forward play that isn't there, that's then inviting pressure on us because we're losing the ball in midfield and it's coming back at us all the time and we're trying to make clearances and it just feels like we're under more pressure than we need to be. We need to somehow find our feet and get back to controlling games better because we're not doing it at the moment.
Just on that point, Cracks, bringing you in, Everton are really good, I think, at wresting control away from teams. You have to go through periods where you have to stay very disciplined, defensively and constantly aware about what might come, and you have to most certainly win those first and second balls. Now, in the first half, I think the one thing Everton were doing, similar to Brentford, was there was a physicality about them, right? They were trying to bully us. And again, I think Spurs are going to have to try and get used to finding a way to navigate that. They did against Brentford in the second half. Do you have a concern, Cracks, that based on what we saw, again, you go back to that Brentford game, teams are going to deploy and be like that against Spurs and ultimately try and use that as a tactic to get results?
Yeah, I think you're spot on, Rick. To be honest, it's there's a lot of teams that can't really go toe to toe with us. So this is what they do, and you've just got to try and be smart and pick a way round that. It's not easy, but it is doable. It's just a little bit wiser, a little bit smarter in what we do. But again, as I said, I think Ange is just putting this sort of Ange ball into them so much that they're finding it hard to switch within games to be able to do that. So, but I think he'll find a solution to that. Ange, he's a bright man. He would have seen what's needed and make some adjustments and bring in personnel over the next couple of windows to maybe be able to deal with that. But yeah, teams are definitely seeing ways that they can play against us, which will and are effective. So we've got to overcome that, haven't we? We've got to find a way round to be a little bit smarter, a little bit cuter. But yeah, like I said, today not great. But generally, we'd have all taken what we've seen thus far this season, So it's like, don't throw the baby out with the bathwater, which I seem to say nearly 3 times every show. It's something we've got to work out. It's I tell you what, I'd take 11 Van der Vens today, wouldn't you? I mean, his performance today was incredible, but that kind of tells a little bit of the story of the game as well, that he had to be. I would have given him man of the match over Richarlison, but there's a man, I think, that has got that smartness, that he knows he's going to be a lot of balls over the top, recovery runs and making them, but he does it very coolly, very calmly. So it's almost like you've got to get a bit of Van der Ven into a few other personnel within the team to overcome this. I think we've seen a little drop off with a couple of players as well. Kulu at the moment doesn't look quite at it. Bentancur doesn't look quite at it. Udogie's had a bit of a game the other night. Today he was okay, but there was a couple of moments. I'm not saying he was bad. But he
not
was not as good.
Yeah,
yes, not as good. So I don't want anybody to think like I'm saying Udogie is terrible, but it's just he's not been as good. He's not been at the level. So yeah, let's just hope that a few of those begin to find form again, and we can kick on from now.
I don't think you're saying anything wrong there, Cracks. I don't think you are. And again, there's got to be an element where we've come away with a 2-2 that really Spurs should see games out. And again, when you're going for the top four, or dare I say, looking to go above that level, these are the games that are away from home against side. With no disrespect, Everton are in the relegation zone. I know they've come out of that now with a point so far this weekend. Our results dictate, but Spurs have got to see these games out. One thing I want to ask you, Jace, before we go into the game, just a bit more detail, is that ultimately...
That's a little bit false, isn't it? Because they're 10 points less than they should have. So.
Obviously, yeah, of course. They'd be mid-table. Listen, they'd be a mid-table team. And again, you'd argue maybe and say a mid-table team like Everton are points not a terrible result. But you know, it's like, Jace, when you're 2-1 up, you're going to die in acres of that game.
Of course it is. Of course it's frustrating, yeah.
Yeah. One thing I want to ask you, Jace, just about is the controller games. And many are suggesting the fact that that's the one thing missing in terms of that game today. We didn't have ultimate control. And what I will say is that, look, I think we've seen some great periods under Ange of like 30, 40, 60-minute, periods of games. We yet to see a full 90-minute performance. Is that doable, do you think, under this brand of football? Or are there times that, because of the nature and the intensity of it, you are going to have a slight dip in games midway? Do you see where I'm coming from?
Yeah, I mean, I think Newcastle's about the only game where we played really well for the most of the game, I thought, the Newcastle home game. But other than that, we've either started slowly, or we saw that at Brighton, didn't we, where we were appalling at the start. We finished badly or something. I think it's more of a case of there's still a long way to go with learning how to play it and getting the things right. And part of that, as well as with the disruption to the team at times, with playing two fullbacks at centre half, and we've had a period here where we've had no Sarr, no Bissouma and such in midfield. Bentancur was out. He's now coming back from injury, so it's not surprising that he'll be up 1 week, down another week. And I think it takes you, it will take a lot more time than people realise. And I think that the thing is, when you're trying to do that, and I go back to Pochettino's first season, which was very similar to this, where we got to a cup final that season, but we lost at home to West Brom, and we lost at home to Stoke, and we lost at home to Villa and things, where I think what we're trying to do is to be better at the things he wants us to be good at. And if you start compromising on those principles to improve the things you're not good at, then you'll never improve the things that he wants you to be good at. So I think it's a question of getting the balance right. And he wants us to be better at doing the things that he knows we're capable of doing. Now, our passing today at times was really sloppy. That's where the problems all start from, by giving the ball away, as Vass says, giving the ball to the opposition. Then that's when you start losing control of a game. It's not necessarily that the tactics as such are causing you to lose control. It's your execution of the tactics. So I think it's a balance. Like I say, it's a balance like playing the ball out from the back and things. You have to make those mistakes. You have to learn from them. But you have to keep persevering with them to become better at them, and I think that's where he is at the moment. But you're right, we haven't. There's a lot of games where, Brentford in the week, I thought we played well for 15 minutes only, but we've still got a result, and perhaps we're relying a little bit on the quality of player that we've got, where Son might come up with a bit of magic, or Maddison has, or others have come up with a brilliant bit of play, or a rescue tackle from Van der Ven from being a bottom half team type of thing. But I'm not, I think you just keep going with what we're trying to do and get the things right that we need to be getting right. And then you start to look at the other sides, but do the things you need to do first.
Yeah, that's fair. Look, I think what we are going to do on this basis, we are going to go for our first break of the show for our listeners and audio. Again, thanks so much for tuning in. Over 1,000 plus of you watching us live here. Given the fact we've just blown a late draw away to Everton. It's been such a great week for Tottenham, hasn't it? We all stand the point that, what can bring us down, but Spurs being Spurs, they always give you and leave you wanting just that little bit more. Going, of course, to what is now the real business stage of the season. I'm joined by Crackers, Richard Cracknell. I didn't went uncrack there again. Jason McGovern and Vass Koni, Dr Tottenham's very own. when the doctor is here, we can't get many results. We've realised that. But Vass was here for Burnley, can I remind you. So we did get that jinx off our back. Guys, just very quickly in relation to the team for this one. Now, Spurs making a couple of changes ahead of the game where we saw, of course, Dejan Kulusevski drop down to the bench. Pat Matassar back in the squad following his return from the African Cup of Nations. Brennan Johnson, once again, restored to the starting lineup after the case of scoring in the week against Brentford. And, of course, we saw for Tottenham there a team line up of Vicario, Porro Romero, Van der Ven, Udogie, Bentancur, Højbjerg, Maddison, Johnson, Richarlison, Werner. The bench of Forster, Dragusin, Emerson, Davis, Skip, Sarr, Kulusevski, Hill, Scarlett. Must make that point. I think it's Højbjerg, of course, coming back into the side there. And Vass, will come over to you. Team-wise going into it, was you fairly happy with that? Kulusevski dropping down to the bench?
Yeah, because I don't think he's been the Kulusevski that we all sort of fell in love with last season. He's really, I know he was out a little while with illness, and since he's been back, he hasn't looked the same. I don't know if there's something still bothering him, but he's looking a little bit lethargic. His passing isn't there, his hold-up play isn't there, and it's just, and the way he gave that free kick away at the end, it was just so sloppy. So no, it didn't surprise me to see him on the bench. And as for Sarr, I thought he'd probably start on the bench. I couldn't see him just coming straight into the side either. So pretty much as expected, I suppose.
Yeah, I mean, in relation to obviously the way Spurs started that game, they had the perfect start, finish from Richie, confidence flowing through him now, 10 for the season for Richarlison now. Spurs have scored more away goals, 26, than any other team in the Premier League this season, and the only team to have scored in all of their Premier League games this season. It was lovely, great work from Tottenham after the lovely work from Højbjerg, Werner in the build-up with Udogie as well, to see Richie put the ball in the back of the net with some quality as well. Obviously, no celebration from Richie on his return to Goodison Park. And when you look at Richarlison's overall form now, it's the first time in scoring 4 consecutive league games since 2021. And again, we mentioned that point, 9 goals in his last 8 Premier League games. I just wonder, Jace, come over to you. Does Richie's reign of form give you the confidence that he could maybe be Tottenham's long-term answer to that centre forward that we've been looking for?
I mean, not to the. I don't think he's ever going to be a striker that scores 25 goals a season. But that takes him to 10 now. What are we on today? Match day. What's that? 20. How many games have we played?
Match day. We're now 17, aren't we? 23.
23. You know, if he can push up to 18 to 20 goals a season, and others are chipping in, then I think, you know, you don't have to have a bloke who scores 30 goals a season. I mean, Chelsea have won the league in the past with people that have scored, their top scorers like 8 or 9, but you've got goals from all the attacking players. And if Richarlison gets 18, but you get you know, 15 from Sonny and you get 8 or 9 from Maddison and things, then it is. I still think his hold-up play needs to tighten up. There's times when he's a little bit sloppy in possession, and I mean, you know, part of them scoring that late equaliser was him losing the ball as well today. So, but you know, he's looking a much better player than we saw 6 months ago, isn't he? I think his confidence is up. I think he's mentally settled a little bit more off the pitch and on the pitch and things like that. He can do a job for us, that's for sure. I'm not sitting there thinking we've got to go and spend 70, 80 million on a brand new striker. But like I say, if he gets 18, 20 goals a season, I think you can live with that. But it's just that general all-round play that I think you need to tighten up on a little bit.
Absolutely. Vass, if I can come round to you, then we'll go to Cracks in relation to the Vicario situation. Now, I'm asking you this, Vass, as you obviously, you know, proudly qualified referee over there by the refereeing standards. We've got a few stills here that we're going to show for our watching audience. Now, it was obviously becoming clear very, very early on that Everton were trying to wrestle Vicario into the net from corners. And it's obviously now becoming a target since that Man City game in the Cup. Now, the first still that we're showing for our watching audience here is in the build-up to this Everton goal coming. Now, at the time, this wasn't deemed a foul. You can clearly see there one of the Everton players all over Vicario, but it was allowed to happen. And then in the build-up to actually Everton getting the goal, we saw a wonderful recovery challenge by Mickey van der Ven, who, again, as Crack said earlier, can't underestimate just how good that guy was on not just 1, 2, but 3 or 4 number of occasions. But Everton did get their equaliser, sticking with you, Vass, because Vicario could only palm a corner with Harrison backing into him across the face of goal. It's headed back across for Calvert-Lewin to nod in. Now, Vicario, as we mentioned earlier, is going to have every team now playing against him like this with regards to the rest of the season. My question to you, Vass, is number one, do you feel it's a foul? And number two, if it isn't a foul, do him and the goalkeeping coach need to do more to address the situation?
Yeah, I didn't think there was a foul on the first one. In fact, on that previous still that you put up, it looked like it looked like there was more of a foul on Richarlison. You can see Godfrey there jumping on Richarlison's back, in actual fact, preventing Richarlison from getting to the ball, and the ball then flies to the back post where, was it Tarkovsky or whoever just nodded it across. So there was a foul there, but not on Vicario. I think as far as Vicario goes, Jace mentioned something earlier that I also mentioned on our podcast last week, and that was, I wonder if Vicario actually prefers it if there's no Spurs defenders around him so he can make a run for the ball. But if he's going to leave himself exposed in that way, then you need to get a Spurs defender in between him and the opposing player, just to make it hard for the opposing players to back into him. And similarly, referees need to be looking out for it more. I mean, if opposing managers can see what's going on, then surely referees can see what's going on as well. And they probably need to blow for free kicks on occasion, because, I mean, on this one, you've got clear backing in from the forward player there.
Harrison,
and it's just carrying on consistently, and he's getting no protection there at all.
Just on that word of protection, Cracks, come over to you. Everton, up until that goal, had 4 corners, all which have been put right under Vicario's head. Basically, in a sense, the same as Nathan Ake's goal was against Spurs a few weeks back in the FA Cup. Is there an argument, Cracks, as well? I know you said earlier about the players have to do more around him. Should Vicario also be stronger to have someone pushed into his own box in the 6-yard box there? What do you feel on that, Cracks?
Yeah, well, I mean, the ref was letting so much go today. We seem to have just gone 180 with the keepers, because if you stood anywhere near them, the refs always blew up and gave a foul for the goalkeeper. Now it just seems like it's a little bit game on. So if it's game on for the attacking team, then surely that also applies for the keeper. So if he needs to actually go and give somebody a within the limits wallop or be just as strong as them, then that should be the thing to do. I'm just wondering whether on corners, where I said maybe Vicario doesn't want anyone too close to him, if you get somebody like Romero stood in front of him and trying to deal with any strikers, attackers that are trying to get under his skin and leaning against him, and Romero's there or one of the defenders are there to offer him a bit of protection, more or less right up until the moment the ball is struck, which then the defender can move away and allow Vicario to make his runs. So he gets the best of both worlds then, a little bit of protection from his defender to see off anybody trying that tactic, but then also a bit of a clear run to try and get the run and jump to take the ball. So I don't know. It's just it was weird. It was like today you could see that the ref was letting so much go where they haven't been, but we never sort of wised up and clicked onto that and thought, oh, okay, well, if you're letting this go, then we can, be a little bit more bastard here as well, for want of a better word, because he's letting stuff go, and Everton took full advantage of it, and we kind of didn't fight fire with fire. So this is what I'm saying about a little bit of smarter management. It might need Ange to come over and speak to one or two of the more senior players and say to them, look, he's letting so much go here today. You can maybe try and step up and just be a little bit more in your face in return. So up until a point, it's that fine line you've got to walk all the time, isn't it? How much is too much? Can we go just to the limit?
And that changes every referee as well. That's the problem. It changes every referee.
Yeah, exactly. And I think
give a penalty away.
Yeah, well, this is the thing. Yeah, you see it as an overstep of the mark. And to be fair to Everton, that first goal, they done that right, pushed it right to the line of the acceptability before it was a foul. and took advantage of it. So
Ricky, can you just hold the sorry,
Alex,
can you just hold that still there a moment? That corner's been taken from the other side of the pitch there.
Yep.
And we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 of our defenders standing at the near post, right? And we've got 3 at the back post with 3 Everton players. You know, something's got to happen here. It's not just about Vicario. The whole team needs to defend these situations better, in my opinion.
Can I say, Vass, before Jason comes in there, just to confirm, Vass, from your perspective, you deem it's not a foul, right? Is this more of a tactic that teams are going to be doing more and more against us like this?
Yeah, there were occasions when they were fouling and the referee could have blown, but I just think that on the first goal today, I don't think there was enough from Harrison for a foul on Vicario. But as I mentioned before, I thought Godfrey did foul Richarlison, but it's the kind of thing that players seem to get away with for some reason. Unless you're a defender, then you give away a penalty.
Yeah, how did you view the goal, Jace, for you?
I wouldn't have disallowed it. I'm not anti a little bit of contact as such. I don't think every bit of contact is a foul. It drives me mad when I hear that phrase, there was contact. So it doesn't mean it's a foul. It's never been a non-contact sport. I just think you've got to be a little bit stronger. I think you just learn, it's to do with your setup and things like that. And we have to look at it. Because like I say, David Moyes is rubbing his hand. He's getting Souček to be in exactly that position. Yeah, you know that. And there'll be 1 or 2 other teams doing it. But I think you've got to, as I say, you'd have to look at every single corner over the first 23 games and see how often we've set up that way and how often we've cleared the ball. And it's the fact that we've conceded 2 in the space of a week, it kind of brings it home to you. Whereas perhaps if one was in October and one was today, we wouldn't be focusing on it so much. But it's just, I don't think it's a massive thing. It's just a little tweak here and there. And I'm sure in the course of, over the course of the next 7 days, they'll look at it, sit down and discuss it with Vicario. What do we want to do? Backing in, I mean, I look at the Nathan Ake goal and lots of people said, who was it? Rodri, wasn't it? That was
Rodri, yes. Or Diaz. I think it was Diaz, actually. That was
yes, he's backed into him. But if you looked at that, where the ball was going to drop was exactly where Diaz was. So, he's entitled to go for the ball, Diaz, and he's entitled to put his body. He would have been right under the ball. It just meant Vicario couldn't get to it. But that's not a foul. So, like I say, just look and tweak it. Go through it with him. Do some corner routines, Monday and Tuesday type of thing, where you set up and you get, you practice to defend in that scenario. And I don't think you want to make a big thing of it, but it will get tested a lot over the course of the next 6 weeks. Other teams will constantly do it.
Yeah, on these refereeing decisions, Ange said, look, it's obviously never going to be an easy game here. You've got to deal with a fair bit, but most of the time we handled it okay. In the second half, we had good chance and unfortunately needed that third goal to kill the game off. Unfortunately, we couldn't hold out. It seems like referees just let things go nowadays and let VAR decide. We're so disappointed to concede so late. It seems like there's a trend with us that referees aren't prepared to intervene in those kind of situations. We have to accept that. The nature of it conceding so late doesn't give us the chance to wrestle it back. We just have to accept that. And I think it's the first time, actually, we have seen Ange criticise referees on a certain level, because I think, to be fair, I think that's one thing many have said, actually, that Vass, I'll just ask you on that with referees and Ange, that maybe because he set his precedents in such a polite way after the Chelsea game and said, look, we need to respect the referee's decision. I don't know whether that now rubs off on the pitch, that referees are now almost not too concerned about giving decisions against Spurs. I mean, do you have a take on that for you, Vass?
I think he's just created a little bit of a rod for his own back, because, you can't on the one hand say that you were taught to respect the referee's decision and then come out at some point and criticise the referee, because then you'll just look like a hypocrite.
Yeah.
So he's got to find a polite way, as you just said, of making some points about the refereeing without being overtly critical. But, protection comes in all forms. I don't think players like Maddison are being protected. We had that little farce with that lot down the road recently, weren't we? When their coach was moaning about Saka not getting protected. And Jace is right. There is an element of referees allowing things to go because they got VAR to sort of jump in and intervene, and it's making referees somewhat complacent because they've got this fallback option. and that shouldn't be the case. Referee should be refereeing the game so that VAR doesn't have to intervene, or only intervenes when something's clearly wrong.
Yeah.
But yeah, as far as Ange goes, I think he knows what's going on, and I think we're all agreed he needs to take the rectifying action now. He needs to regroup the players and try and get over these issues that seem to be affecting us. And we need to get back to keeping clean sheets, because it's something that we've not done for quite a while.
That is the key, isn't it?
Just say that, Rick. I mean, I've always said it. I hate hiding behind referees as excuses. You can say, could it be a foul? Couldn't it be a foul? But don't concede the free kick in the first place, and we're not talking about it being a foul. Always look at when you get your game perfect, and you get every decision you make right in the game, and you get every bit of play right in the game, then you can start looking at criticising others. But when you criticise a ref for a subjective decision as well, it's not some people would give it, some people wouldn't give it. It's not like he's jumped at Vicario with an elbow and knocked him flat on the ground or anything like that, is it? Don't give the free kick away in the first place. Don't invite the ball in the box. Don't give away stupid corners, because decisions, when you invite decisions to be made, sometimes they'll go against you. It's simple, but I hate the way that it's not just Tottenham. I hate the way teams hide behind refereeing decisions when they get so much within the game wrong themselves. Pass the ball better, take our chances, don't give away free kicks. They're all the things that I'd focus on, rather than looking at a subjective decision that a referee could make one way, couldn't make the other way. It's simple. Don't hide.
Yeah, no, I totally agree on that point. Cracks, come over to you. Spurs did recover. Richie put Tottenham back in front. I mean, what a finish that one was from the edge of the box. Pretty well for Madders as well to set it up. Massive time for Spurs to score, because I've got to say, in that period, Everton had been on top of the game and Spurs were struggling going in to half-time. But for Richie now, again, we talk about the point now that ultimately, the guy is much, much better in front of goal. His confidence is absolutely flying at the moment. And you look at the point, Spurs spent 60 million on him. He's 4 away now, Cracks, from matching his best tally in England being 15. It is amazing, Cracks, when you consider what a pain-free and good environment can do for the player. Do you feel he looks re-energised, that Tottenham are revitalised? And do you honestly feel for you now this can be the real Richarlison that we're seeing now for Tottenham?
Yeah, his stats bear that out, don't they, Rick? I think, what is he, 9 in... Is he 9 or 10? 9 in 9 in 8. So, I mean, that's a phenomenal return. The type of return in the Premier League that would probably see you in the £100 million bracket. So all of a sudden, if you continue in that form, then 60 million quid looks cheap, doesn't it? He had a lot going on, as we found out, in his personal life and with injury. That seems to be behind him now. So long may it continue. He seems like a confidence player, the type of lad that you've got to get the arm round rather than kicking up the arse. And Ange is obviously managing that side of him well. And fantastic. You just hope and pray that continues, because if you're going to be conceding goals the way we are and you don't address that, then you are really going to need his goals even more so. Just wondering how he is once Son gets back, because there was that issue of where they sort of seem to play across each other a little bit. So hopefully he can stay in the groove along with Son coming back and scoring, because we know Son will do. He's a class player. So hopefully that combination with those two, they can find their own groove and way of working together. And the same with Maddison and Bentancur, which is pretty much a new partnership. I think that was the first time they played together the other night. So, and they played together again today, and it looked a little bit messy, but that's what you go into training Monday to Friday for, isn't it? To sort of look at that. So, I mean, there's two partnerships where you think to yourself, okay, they'll work out, they're intelligent, and the trainers and coaches will say, okay, look, don't do that, do this, do that, and hopefully that they'll find a way, both of those partnerships, because you need that midfield partnership to be able to feed that front two partnership, if you like. But no, Richie he looks a happy, settled player at the moment, and stats are bearing that out. Long may it continue. His work rate as well, Rick, is phenomenal, absolutely phenomenal. You know, he will go and shut down defenders as teams try and play out. He'll go and put pressure on the keeper to make a decision to make a clearance, and quite often that will end up being a throw in for us somewhere near the halfway line. So he causes a ceding of possession back to us. So all round he's been phenomenal. So it's just a shame that today he wasn't, the main story of getting the two and that being the winners. So but I like him, really like him.
Totally agree. That's just very quick on James Maddison. You mentioned him earlier. No player in Europe now is top 5 leagues has provided more league away assists from home this season than Maddison. His record so far this season: 12 games, 3 goals, 6 assists. I mean, it does feel like a real weight's been lifted having him back in the side. How much are Spurs going to need to rely on him, given the fact that obviously with Sonny now, he may be away still now for a couple of weeks? Is it again where you need that creation of Maddison to really help the team, given, of course, that the next 15 games to go are really critical for Tottenham in this battle for European football?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, he's a key player for us, no doubt about it. And all the creativity seems to come from him, whether it's him directly or whether he's putting in balls for players to run onto. He's the one that can help us unlock defences. So yeah, no question in my mind, Rick, that James Maddison's got a key role to play for the rest of the season, and hopefully he'll be up to speed again very soon. I mean, he had a good game today, no question. He had that one shot as well that Pickford pushed wide, which was unfortunate. But yeah, his vision and his ability, creative ability on the ball is something that's going to be very key for us.
I totally agree. And that's just a word on Richie. After the game, manager said, look, he's been good for a while, not just his goals, but his general all build-up play. He really put in a solid shift for Tottenham. How impressed have you been with this turnaround of Richarlison's form post the operation?
Yeah, well, he's made me eat some humble pie. I mean, I wasn't his biggest fan for a while, but how can you argue with what he's doing in recent games? He's been excellent. He's been grabbing the goals. He's been looking much fitter. He's chasing down defenders. He's back helping out defensively as well. His hold-up play was always something that concerned me. Wasn't very good, but that seems to be improving too. So yeah, he's been doing great, and I hope he continues to do so.
I do agree. Look, second half wise, the frustration I think was there because of the fact that Werner was through on goal and shoot straight at Pickford. Again, I know Werner's only been here for a short amount of time, and his assists have been, really helpful to Spurs to get in the position they are in. But in front of goal, I think obviously work still needs to be done there. And again, if he can convert the assists into goals, then what a great signing he'll be for Tottenham in the second half of the season. Cracks picked up on it earlier. Mickey van der Ven. I mean, if anyone wants to stand out from that game along with Richie, is Mickey, because the turn of pace he showed to halt Jack Harrison in the second half, and bear in mind how involved he was in the first half to stop the Corey as well, and Dominic Calvert-Lewin. I mean, that guy is just rapid to the way Spurs play, Cracks. And I think you said this earlier. I mean, we rely so much on that pace, don't we, from Maddison, from Mickey van der Ven, because of the way Tottenham want to play under Ange.
Oh, he's only 2 things visible, man-made visible from space today: the Great Wall of China and the Great Wall of Mickey van der Ven, wasn't it? He was just
remarkable.
Just doesn't, and he just never seems to be struggling, Rick, does he? He's just never. He never looks like he's scrambling, or he reads the game well, and even if he couldn't read the game as well as he does, his pace would get him out of trouble. Now you sort of combine the 2 things together of his reading of the game and the pace. He's absolutely top drawer, and you think to yourself, well, we've identified that going forward with Winders, upcoming Winders, a youngish player, not terrible amounts of money either. If you can start to pick up 3 or 4 players in key positions in that Van der Ven mould of young, but seeing something there that you can work with within Ange Postecoglou's system, then you really have got the backbone of a team, haven't you? So
absolutely.
It's a bit like with Werner. He's come in. It was a no-brainer of a deal. I think he's done okay, but I think he's done well, actually, more than okay. Maybe now the team that's putting together transfer targets is looking at a Van der Ven type player, or showing the stats of a Van der Ven, but in that Werner role that can come in, and if Werner's not to be the long-term answer, then all of a sudden you've dealt with that position like they have with Maddison. Maddison came in, obviously he was not an unknown. So no. He was phenomenal today. Just to rewind a little bit, well, I think we was talking about Richarlison and his goals, where we really need to pick up if we are going to turn days like today into wins, is you've got to start getting a few goals out of a Werner. You've got to get a few goals out of Maddison. You've got to get a few goals out of Kulu. This is exactly how Man U dominated back in the 90s, because they had that midfield that not only did they have strikers scoring, you'd have people like Scholes coming in with like just nicking those all important goals, and instead of 1 point it was 3 points. So that's where we've really got to up our game, is to get that sort of trio four in that attacking midfield role, just nicking in with a vital goal here and there to take the pressure off the strikers. But yeah, Van der Ven, back to Van der Ven, unbelievable today. Absolutely brilliant. What a player we've got there.
I totally agree. Look, again, I think when you're talking about players that have been consistent, Mickey Van der Ven has been that for Tottenham. We're coming on to the subs now, but before we do, Ben Godfrey on a yellow card, 2 yards away from the linesman, dives to the ground, zero contact. I mean, that was absolutely embarrassing. And even worse, the officials weren't even there to penalise him. Where was the second yellow? Where it led to him being withdrawn from the game. Again, these are all key things in football, key margins. That, again, if that player goes off, Spurs are facing 10. Jace, come around, you touched on the subs earlier. We saw Sarr and Kulusevski replace Johnson and Bentancur, and then Hill and Skip replace Werner and Maddison, coincidentally. Said it earlier, still maintain the fact for me, half an hour on here, that I just feel when you're replacing pretty much the whole of the midfield, you're tampering around with the back line, game away from home, it's a lot of changes to make. I feel it lose that fluidity and dynamic to the team. Is that fair for me to say in hindsight, looking at the way and manage those substitutions? Do I mute Jace?
I think it's fair, but it is with hindsight. Like I said, he got criticised in the week for losing control against Brentford and for not trying to close the game down. And he's made a couple of decisions today with Dragazin coming on, with Skippy coming on to try and close the game down, and you've got caught. So now he's wrong not to do it, and today he's wrong to do it. That's just the benefit of hindsight. Like I said, the big problem comes with conceding the sloppy free kick. If we don't concede that sloppy free kick, we're not really talking about the substitutions. And the sloppy free kick from Kulu is what's cost us more. And, you know, that's not a defensive substitution, is it, to bring Kulusevski on? So, you know, substitutions are great with hindsight, aren't they, to make them? You know, there was people thinking, why the hell is he bringing Brennan Johnson on in midweek and he scores the goal? So it can go both ways. Today it's gone against us. But like I said, I don't think it's necessarily the substitutions. It's that sloppy free kick. And if we don't concede that, we're not moaning.
No, you're right. And again, the game is predicted and deemed on margins. Vass, come over to you. And again, if Spurs don't concede the free kick at the end there, they've probably gone to win it 2-1. And we're not even having a conversation about the game management or the substitutions of Ange. But unfortunately, we are. Romero heading in a free kick on and Branthwaite nodding it at the back post. Just to confirm, Vass, for you, you see no issue in that goal, right? And it was rightly stood at 2-2?
I don't think so. I think the only thing that could have been argued was possible offside, but VAR had a look at that.
Yep.
But Jace is right with the substitutions. I mean, you've got to bear in mind that two of the guys that went off, Bentancur and Maddison, are coming back from injury. So they're probably blowing out their backsides come the end of the game. So you probably feel at some point it's safe to take them off, you know, even if it is on 86 minutes or whatever the case may be. And, you know, Werner was not in the game very much. So you probably put Brian Hill on thinking that, you know, he's got more work rate for those last few minutes. And I think Ange a little bit confused as to what to do with Dragosin, because we've obviously spent some decent money on him, and getting him on to see out games is probably Angie's way of integrating him into the squad rather than have him sit on the bench. Whether that's right or wrong, it's all about opinions at the end of the day, isn't it? So I didn't have a big issue with the substitutions, and yeah, it's only because we conceded that last minute goal that everyone's talking about it, I think.
Yeah, I mean, it's one of those things, Vass. Do you feel again with us playing as we are and getting used to the style of play and into our groove that ultimately Spurs will find their way? I mean, Crack says about it earlier about defensively. We can't keep conceding goals every single game and expect to get away with it. Again, we're up there now with conceding, I believe, one of the most in the Premier League that we touched upon earlier. Spurs are going to have to find a solution to that. And back to what you said earlier, the point is, Vass, got to start getting back and keeping clean sheets. Well, that's the key here.
Isn't what Dyer and Davis playing?
Well, we've got to get back to keeping clean sheets, but don't forget, not that long ago, we were playing Royale and Davis as central defenders.
Yeah,
so we've had our issues, you know what I mean? And our midfield was decimated as well. So we were just muddling through. We've just got to try and get back to what we had earlier in the season.
Those first 10 games.
But and we've got a few new bodies coming in now as well. So yeah, I think we got a run of home games coming along now, Rick. Three home games on the trot.
That's right, yeah. 3 home games on the trot now.
Yeah. So now's the time to try and sorry, the other thing as well, don't forget, we played Wednesday night.
Yeah.
Saturday morning turnaround. That is a short spell to turn around. So
and I hate 12:30s, Vass. I hate these 12:30s, mate.
They're horrible.
They're horrendous.
They're the worst. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. That's probably got something to do with it too.
Yeah.
So it's get back on the training pitch, get people fit, get people energized, and we'll go from there. Yeah.
Totally agree. One final thing I want to ask you guys before I do. Look, Spurs have completed the signing of the Swedish youngster, Lucas Bergvall. The midfielder will join Spurs in a deal worth around $8.5 million. He'll link up with Postecoglou's first team squad in the summer. He completed a medical on Friday in a move that sees Spurs, of course, end the window with 3 players coming in, of course, him to join in the summer. He's a player that has earned rave reviews in his home country. Thus, in comes the attention of Barcelona as well as other clubs. But despite the law of joining the Spanish Giants, the midfielder has opted to put pen to paper on a 5-year deal with Tottenham Hotspur. Worth me mentioning that he said on joining the club, it's a fantastic thing to sign for Tottenham, a dream to have the opportunity to play in the Premier League. I have received an incredible welcome and reception from the club and feel really good to be here. He went on to say, I'm incredibly excited about the opportunity to play for the football club, and he's a really great man, a great coach. It's a hungry team. It feels like it's the beginning of a new era. I'm a box-to-box midfielder who likes the ball at his feet, and I also consider myself to be a leader too. Big words there. Let's hope he lives up to them. We'll see more of him in the summer. Guys, a final question to you all. It has been a bite-sized last one on Spurs in comparison to normal here, which I know Vass loves a bite-size and does Crackers and Jason. Not in the circumstances that we wanted it to be. But final question to you boys, or if I start with Jason. Jace, in terms of that result and where that leaves us...
Hour to go.
I'm doing you a favour today, mate. I know
the cricket will be on soon with India.
The cricket's on.
I know. Look, Jason, bless him, he's got a Saturday off, right? I can't take his whole Saturday up. Jace, in terms of where this leaves us in terms of the quest for the top 4, we know there's other teams around us still to play over the weekend, but you got any concern that games like that today ultimately are the games that really, I know given they've got a 10-point deduction, they would be sitting mid-table, but any real concern for you? Vass is there. We've got 3 home games up to come. Spurs can still finish in amongst that top 4.
Me or Vass?
Jace to begin with.
Jess. Who's Jess?
I just added someone extra there. Sorry, bud.
It's very un-Jedward, isn't it? But the portmanteau in it of Jason and Vaz. Jess.
Yeah, sorry.
I said right the season, I think we've got a great chance to do it. I still believe we have. Like I say, other teams drop points late on in games. You only know the value of them come the end of the season. I think the gap between ourselves and West Ham and Man United is quite big. They play each other tomorrow, so someone's dropping points there. If not, both of them are dropping points. I don't think we're a team that's, I think if we finish 4th this season, or even if 5th was to nick that Champions League spot, I think that's more or less where I would expect us to have finished at the start of the season, despite Kane leaving. I think if you rewind it to the season preview, I said I think we can finish in that 4th or 5th spot. I still think there's a great chance to do it. if we've got 3 home games coming up now, and Brighton's next on the list. I think we know how poor we were against Brighton, and we know that they can pick holes in you. So, let's get 7-9 points on that board from those next 3 home games, particularly if it's 9 points, and we'll be in a great position without all the distraction. Yes, I wanted to go on a proper cup run and that, but we have got time to put our feet up. Let's not forget that there are so many teams around us that have got European football, European football, and now that they're in the stages where I think Unai wants to win something, and their form's tailed off a little bit, they'll start picking stronger teams in midweek. West Ham will pick stronger teams in midweek. Liverpool will start picking stronger teams in midweek as they go for it, now that they're at that group stage. So, when we're sitting at home with our feet up, other teams are playing lots of football that are in and around us. And I think it gives us a great chance. And just time on that training pitch, I think, is huge for us. That's for sure. And it shows today that we still need it. And, when Sonny's back, he hasn't played with Werner yet. So there's the dynamics and things like that still to work on. Players slowly coming back from injury. Sar's now back. Maddison will get better. He just needs game time. Bentancur will get better. So I think don't get too downhearted just because we've ended up drawing today a game that we look like we'd have won.
I totally agree on that. I mean, Crack's bringing you in. Look, you said earlier these are the games Spurs are going to have to convert to obviously get 3 points, and if we are going to hopefully have a really positive end to the season, you mentioned it there. Kulu starting off at the moment. Worth mentioning as well. Sarr, Maddison, and Bentancur yet to just start together as a free. That's going to be exciting. Son to come back in. Any concerns for you, Cracks, that given what we've got available to us, and as Vass mentioned, 3 home games to come, Spurs can go on a really good run between now and the end of the season and still get that full place?
I think over the next 4 or 5 games, and as Jay said, plenty of time on the training pitch instead of travelling to the far-flung ends of Europe and even in the Cup, then those new partnerships, which they are, and coming back from injuries and coming back from competitions, you could find over the next 4 or 5 games, we have 1 or 2 bumpy results within that whilst that settles and gels, but get to that last 9-10 games if we've got everybody back, and if we've sorted out those sort of Son, Richarlison dynamics and the Bentancur Maddison dynamics, and get that firing, we could be in a really, really good position in that last 9 to 10 games in the running to go on and do something. Having said that, in our running is quite difficult. If I remember rightly, we've got some tough old games at the end of the season, so that does make this next 4 or 5, especially with 3 at home, quite crucial. So if we can get a bit of a buffer going, but if we make top 4, make Champions League for next season, that's absolutely huge. Given a new manager coming in, a new philosophy, the loss of the real talisman in the club and our goal scorer, just to even be in and amongst around that in a first season will be an incredible improvement and achievement. So I think we can do it. I've not seen, other than Liverpool, Man City, and the mob down the road in here and now, nobody's really pulling any trees up. So, Villa look like they've dropped off a little bit. So absolutely no reason why we can't go and do it. And I'll be delighted if we do. I think it signals real progress.
And if you look as well, just at it, our points per game would see us get 72 points. 72 points gets you top 4 football for sure.
Yeah. So really important point to make that.
We're on target for 72 points with the disruption that we've had. I know lots of teams have had disruption, in fairness. It's not just us. Brentford in the week have had some disruption and that. So most teams have had that. But 72 points. And like I say, some of those in and around us will now get back into Europe. Well, they'll get the inconsistent results. They'll come back from a Wednesday or a Thursday and drop points at Sheffield United and things like that. So, don't get too downhearted because of what's happened today.
Yeah, it's a good point. I mean, again, what Cracks was referring to earlier, Roddy says it there for us.
Even that, Ron, Newcastle, Man City, Arsenal, Liverpool, how many of those teams will be in Europe around quarterfinals and semi-finals those weeks?
It's a really important point to make that.
Arsenal may well have gone to Bayern Munich in the first leg or something. Then they're coming back to a North London derby with Bayern Munich in the second leg straight after it. So, that when it's written down on paper looks tough, but there's lots of disruptions and things that happen in and around that time. FA Cup semi-finals are in that time as well. So, don't panic at just those 4 fixtures written down.
A great point to make there, Jason. Vass, to close it with you. Give me your thoughts. I mean, like I say, mate, always love to have you on here whenever we can make it work. Coming towards now this business end of the season, you still fairly confident, Vass, that given what we've gone through as a group, suspensions, injuries, and again, these late goals, can't get away from it from Tottenham, 8 conceded in stoppage time. That's got to stop, as we said earlier. Vass, enough there for you to believe Tottenham are still worthy of getting that Champions League place between now and the end of the season?
Well, yeah, that's got to be the aim, and I think it's there. And albeit that we've not been playing great lately, we're picking up points, and people say that's a sign of a good team when they're not playing well and picking up points. Great point. Hopefully that is the case. And if we've all said in various ways today that we've got to get our injured players back match fit again. We're going to get people like Bissouma back and Son back, and people are going to start learning to play with each other and everything else. So you got to hope that off the back of that, the standard of play improves, the quality of play improves, and the performances improve, and then so do the results. And then hopefully we do build up a little bit of a buffer. And by the time we have this difficult run that Jason just mentioned there, we're back into a bit of a groove again and feeling confident about going into those games, and everything changes. I mean, listen, a week is a long time in football. Trust me. Been a fan for a long time, so things can change quickly. So, well, fingers crossed. I think we'll be there or thereabouts. Absolutely.
Amen. And Vass, just very quickly, mate, we find your dulcet tones over at the Dr Tottenham Podcast on a weekly basis as well, mate. Where can we check that out and find you guys for those that want to check the Dr Tottenham Podcast out?
Yeah, those that want to give us a listen or a review, we are on YouTube. We're also wherever you find podcasts, Spotify, iTunes, Amazon Music, the whole kind of canoodle. Come and give us a listen. It's a good crack sometimes. I think you'll enjoy it. Thanks for having me on, by the way, Ricky, and for plugging the pod. Appreciate it.
Pleasure, mate. Pardon the pun there. Good crack. You get it. Uncrack from earlier in the week. Guys, thank you so much. Just one thing I do want to bring attention to, that we are delighted on Last One Spurs here to have repowered with NordVPN. This will give you the opportunity, look, for those that are looking at the time at the moment to get away on holidays. Jason's got one in Thailand coming up very, very soon. If you're looking to save money on flights, if you're looking to get away and obviously have the opportunity to have a bit of discount on tickets, you can change your virtual location settings. It works really good as well for, of course, when you watch football overseas or with regards to taking away what you want to do in the UK elsewhere. Having Nord's a really, really good tool to handle. So my advice is go and check those out. We've got a discount at the moment running. That's nordvpn.com/LWS. But we'll be back for you during the week for a very special Last One on Spurs coming your way. Crack, Jace involved in that one. Even I'm now saying crack. I've got to stop doing that. But look, thank you so much for your support from Vass, from Jason, from myself here. Look, keep on fighting, guys. We will get the results. Go on, Chase.
Don't call him crack because you got crack and sack at the same time. It's not a good sign, mate.
As long as back's not in there, we'll be all right, mate. I tell you. I felt like a back-sacking crack at the end of that game. I tell you, the 2-2. Look, guys, thank you so much for your support.
Crack, back and sack, Rick. I think there's a shit quiz coming up here.
See you on Wednesday. At least we can still smile from Vass, from Jason, from Cracks, from me. Guys, have been the Last One on Spurs. Keep safe, keep well. Have a lovely end to your weekend. And as always,